The moment my mother lifted her glass and said, with a smile too bright to be casual, "We sold your empty house," room fell quiet in a way that made my ears ring, as if someone had turned down the word without asking me first. Christmas had been warm and ordinary until then. The tree lights hummed softly, and the scent of roast potatoes clung to the curtains of Mum's sitting room. My Aunt Margaret froze with a fork halfway to her mouth. My younger cousin Oliver stopped tapping his toy car against the table and looked up, sensing the change in air. I felt my pulse in my throat, the words echoing as if they belonged to someone else. My empty house, the small weatherboard place on Hawthorne Lane that Dad had left me when he passed, the house I hadn't lived in for years but still visited, still aired out, still kept as a promise to myself that some things were allowed to stay. I didn't know it was for sale. I managed, keeping my voice even. I was 32, old enough to know when anger would only make a mess, young enough to feel blindsided anyway. Mum reached across the table and squeezed my hand, her grip firm, almost rehearsed. "You live in the city now, Ellie." It was just sitting there. "A lovely family will take care of it." Before I could ask which family, or how a house in my name could be sold without my signature, the doorbell rang. It wasn't the cheerful chime that usually announced neighbors bearing desserts. It was sharper, insistent, like someone knocking with purpose. My Uncle David stood. I'll get it. When he opened the door, the cold from the hall rushed in along with two people in neat coats. They carried folders, not weapons, and wore expressions that were calm and practiced. The taller one introduced herself with a polite nod. "Good evening. I'm Rebecca Collins. This is my colleague, James Turner. We're from State Security Services." Every eye turned to me. I felt heat crawl up my neck, 1,000 questions colliding. Rebecca's tone was respectful, almost gentle, as if she knew how easily fear could bloom in a room like this. "We're sorry to intrude on your holiday," she continued, "but we need to speak with Eleanor Brooks about a property on Hawthorne Lane." My mother's smile wavered. The tree lights blinked. Unaware, we moved to the lounge, away from the table. Rebecca sat on the edge of an armchair, her folder closed. James stood near the window, hands folded, gaze steady. "This isn't an arrest or anything of that nature," Rebecca said quickly, reading the panic in my posture. "It's about a heritage protection order." "A what?" I asked. "The house on Hawthorne Lane sits adjacent to land that was used during the war for communications testing," James explained. "Nothing dangerous, but historically significant. Your father assisted the government in documenting the site years ago. There are records." My chest tightened. Dad had loved that house, not for its walls, but for the stories it held. He had been a quiet man, a teacher who believed knowledge was a kind of service. He'd once told me that Hawthorne Lane was where he learned to listen. Rebecca slid a document toward me. "Your father placed a covenant on the property. Any sale requires review to ensure the historical elements are preserved. We were notified of a transfer attempt this morning." Mum's face drained of color. "I didn't know about any covenant," she said softly. "That's understandable," Rebecca replied. "It was filed under Eleanor's name after her father passed. We attempted to contact her, but the sale was processed quickly." I stared at Mum, not accusing, just trying to understand. She looked older in that moment, smaller. "I thought I was helping," she said. "You're always so busy." "I didn't want the place to become a burden." "It was never a burden," I said, "and meant more than the house." The room held its breath. Then Oliver padded in, dragging his blanket, and leaned against my leg. I rested my hand on his head, grounding myself in the simple warmth of it. Rebecca cleared her throat. "For now, the sale is paused. We'll need to review the paperwork together. Our aim is preservation, not punishment. We believe in working with families. Christmas didn't end that night, but it changed shape. We returned to the table quieter, more thoughtful. Mum kept apologizing, and I kept telling her we would figure it out. The turkey cooled. Laughter came back in small, careful bursts. Over the next week, I drove out to Hawthorne Lane with Mum in the passenger seat. The house stood just as I'd left it, white paint peeling kindly, roses stubborn at the fence. We walked through the rooms, dust motes catching the sun. In the study, Dad's old desk waited, its drawer still sticking the way it always had. I didn't know he did all this, Mum said, touching a framed map on the wall. He never told me. He told me stories, I said, not details. Just that some places matter because of what they helped protect. Rebecca and James met us there, boots wiped, voices low. They explained how the house could become part of a community heritage trail, how school groups might visit, how the stories could be shared without turning the place into a museum that forgot it was once a home. You wouldn't have to give it up, Rebecca said. You could live here again if you wanted, or lease it under the covenant. The point is choice. Choice. The word felt like a gift. Mum stood by the window.